Thank you very much. And I'd like to call to order the Lakewood City Council study session of Monday, July 13th, 2026 at 7 p.m. All members are present except for Councilmember Talbot, who is excused. With that, I'd like to start with the joint Lodging Tax Advisory Committee meeting, and we've got at least two members of that board here. Well, I'm on that board too. So that's three. That's a quorum. So we can start handling business here. Do you have a presentation or do you, you're just going to talk?
No,
Okay.
I asked and was informed we were just kind of a free form, kind of a question and answer session as you may have. I'll just couple of quick notes.
Just please introduce yourself.
Sorry. Yep. I'm Dean Burke and I am on the LTAC committee. I'm CEO of Visit Tacoma Pierce County and been hanging around working with you all for a long time. Looks like there's going to be about 2.3 million roughly in funds coming up this year for use. I think that's got a slight adjustment coming into it because a debt was just paid off or a final payment was just made probably to McGavick. And so there'll be a slight adjustment to that number. So it is in your packet you got. But coming up, application season opens on July 27th for Lakewood this year. So that puts Lakewood right about the end countywide in terms of municipalities and LTAC applications. So those will be wrapped up or collected at late August and then presentations in back half of September. So no big surprises there, but I guess at this point, if you guys wanted to talk about anything or have any questions, we could give it a shot.
Are there any questions for the LTAC committee? Mike.
As you've had a chance to review the reports from last year of the folks that received LTAC grants,
I have not.
did you
So
both think that they reflected that you were meeting the intent of both doing things in the community, but also promoting tourism? Or are we
I'm not
service to the tourism element?
I'm not aware that the committee's been presented with any reports on the summary from last year's. So I have not seen them myself. Yeah.
Mike, we do not receive reports as a committee. Basically, we're just presented every year with a request for funding, but really during their presentations, they might share, attendance numbers, possible room pickups, that kind of thing. But we don't get an official report as a committee. We submit reports, but we never see.
I guess that everybody that receives funds submits a report that talks about what they did and
That's correct.
How they were able to document it, how many people participated and how many were from the nether regions and how many were local.
Correct. They do.
They're able to do that. And I don't know of anyone that ever got one of those reports that ever had it sent back to them asking what are you doing?
I think Ms. Kraus wants to jump in here.
So on page 9 is the JLARC report. We weren't required to submit the report last year, but we've included it in the packet as an informational item. As part of receiving the lodging tax, thank you. As part of receiving the allocation, part of the process is to make an estimate on how many beds will be filled with these events. And so you'll see that there is an estimated amount and an actual amount. Most of the participants or the recipients of the lodging tax awards have been very similar in previous years.
And just FYI for the group, we are all receiving this information at the same time. So I didn't know this was in here either. So thank you. Thank you, Tal.
Any other questions? Preston?
Thank you, Mayor Boki. Just for reference, LTAC funds can be utilized for things that bring folks to Lakewood in terms of tourism, that sort of thing, right? So potentially if we had a multicultural community event center space that drew people in, that could potentially be a use of LTAC funds.
Correct. That in the broadest sense, yeah.
Right.
And typically, you'll have a reserve of capital funds set aside for
that sort of
for
thing.
projects that
Yeah,
would be
that makes
tourism facing. Yes.
Yeah, certainly we couldn't pay for it with 1 year worth of funds, but if we had a reserve fund, it could go towards that potentially.
However, we do want to ensure that it is not just for local community events,
Right.
right? It's in order to generate heads and beds.
Yeah, totally makes sense.
Any other questions? Well, with that, I look forward to working with you in the fall and going through the applications.
Indeed.
Okay. Well, thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next is the Joint Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. Please come on down, all the advisory board members. That begins on page 10. Who's leading the way here? Okay. Go ahead.
All right, good evening, City Council, City Manager Russell. We're here to give you kind of the annual update on the Parks Recreation Advisory Board. And so I'm going to cover kind of our accomplishments from 2025. Vito will go into our 2026 work plan, and then we had generated some questions from the Park Board that we wanted to discuss with you tonight. And so coming out of 2025, several meetings on street ends, and actually made a decision to move forward on a street end, which was a welcome relief for us after studying street ends 3 different times over 15-year period. To actually see movement on that is phenomenal. We're excited. Stacy Redding just shared with us the preliminary design, and it looks great. We're excited to see that come to fruition. You know, we've been working on the development of the legacy plan and working on that. Got a consultant on board now. We had discussion about adoptive parks and volunteerism to benefit the city residents and help support and offset some of the maintenance at park properties. We reviewed all of kind of the capital projects, including the Ward Lake improvements, the Camp Murray boat launch and H Barn and some of the other priorities, sharing with us how we wanted to see that stuff move forward. We've had an evolution of the H Barn conversation, and we'll have a few questions on that project tonight. But we're excited about that. After 20 years in the making, we're getting closer every day, it feels like. And then this group and this board is always interested in how Parks and Recreation can contribute to helping alleviate some of the climate change problems we have. And there's particular interest in this from this group on the urban forestry plan and program that has been implemented, and wanting to see that progress forward. And that was kind of the big hitters for 2025, and Vito will share our 2026 work plan.
Good evening, everyone. Mayor, this is a good opportunity to get together and talk about just Parks and Recreation in general. So our work plan for 2026, continue with the Nisqually Partnership Project. We had an update in May and how that's progressing. Parks Capital Improvement Plan update in August. with a legacy update, which is, we're excited to hear about. Special events update, we had that earlier in the year on what's pending. Street ends, Jason mentioned that, climate change. Legacy plan is a big one that we're real interested in how that's going to come around and how it's going to be implemented. Senior services update at the end of the year. How's that going to work? And, you know, we still don't have a location, and how are we going to make that work? Make it work better, I guess. Historic preservation, H-Barn, Jason touched on that, and I think we've got a couple questions. Code changes, as requested by the council, pending, and parking. In September, youth council updates, playground replacement plan with the legacy plan. How's that going to be implemented? And that's about it on the docket for 2026. So we've got a lot of stuff that we're interested, and hopefully we get a lot of feedback from you tonight on what direction. So thank you. You want us to start with questions?
Yeah, yeah, it looks like desires of the PRAB.
Okay.
You got it. Yep, yep. And Anessa couldn't be here, so I'm going to start with Anessa's question. She had texted me prior to the meeting, but Anessa was specifically looking for an update on the barn restoration project and wanting to know whether or not it's still a goal to be able to have dedicated space for senior services. Kind of the two fall hand in hand. This group and the Parks Department and the City of Lakewood needs a home for senior services. And as we've been developing and morphing the H barn plan, people are just confused. There hasn't been a full update, and so we're curious on status and whether or not that's still a goal to have senior services in that.
Yeah, I am not the one to talk about if we have the goal of putting the I don't know that we have the goal of putting the senior services in there. The final design may allow us to do that, but I don't know that the location of that makes it a great place for the senior services. We would have to have that discussion, but it certainly could be considered. We are in the midst of, I think we have agreed on a basics of a design for the H-Barn. And we, Deputy Mayor and myself, were back in Washington, D.C. looking for money, and we're in the process of getting federal money. And when, hopefully, if we get some federal money, that the clock starts to tick on, we've got 3 years to use it. So stuff's got to happen pretty quickly. So well, we got some in one bill and none in the other. So, we do have some challenges on that.
Are we still looking at an open design on one wing, or?
I don't
we
know.
don't-
We had an ad hoc committee and a design was agreed upon. But I don't know what the final design looks like. What did you guys agree to?
So as part of the ad hoc committee, some of the conversations were about trying to get a project moving forward, where we could at least phase something if we didn't get all of the funding, but we would still have a project. And the design came back at, I think, a little bit higher than really what I was hoping for to get a project going. So I think they're, right now, what was the federal ask? Like three and a half. And I think that we're not even at, a few $100,000 on that. So, that went away. So now we're at LTAC funding, Partners for Parks, and, not much more. The historic thing is still kind of up in the air, I think, on the $1 million for the on that element of it. But we're not at the 10.5 or $11 million mark, so there's a huge delta there that I would be looking to say, okay, what kind of a project can we get done with the money that we do have, and at least start something that we do have, versus we never start something because we keep waiting for, trying to get more money and more money and more money. And, it's a 10 million and then it's 12 million and it's 14 and we still haven't started anything. So my personal desire would be to get a phased project that we can at least start something. But I think that the design goals that were agreed on was basically half of it open, some sort of an open space, open to the outside. Or you could roll down doors or, have some sort of kind of multi space. And then the west side was essentially going to be, space that you could host events or whatever you could, was the vision for that. So with that, we're still kind of not quite to a starting point, right? So that's what I would still be looking for is a design that's actually feasible that we could get going with the money that we do have, with plans potentially in the future to expand.
Councilmember Branstad?
Yeah, I think, we're certainly looking for an affordable design that would maximize the potential for use of the space. But with regards to your specific question about senior service activities, I think it's, I don't think that any design is going to have a dedicated space into it that is going to be set aside for senior activities. I think as our current senior activities program is, it uses a lot of locations. It actually does them well, and I expect that an H-Barn facility exists if we haven't gotten to the point through a multi-generational community center, which would be the place that you would have something that was really dedicated. We're going to still have the senior services project done in satellite locations around. And so I guess my feedback to you would be, don't put your thinking caps about that in a drawer anywhere, but still keep looking for ways that we might get something that would serve seniors well. They've gone from having a really great facility to having to move from it to an adequate facility to now having to be inventive to keep things going and going on. And the H-Barn isn't going to be a solution to that, regardless of the level of funding that comes in, okay, to be able to go and do that, other than in the same way that the pavilion is used upon occasion for senior services activity. So I guess in response to your specific question about senior services and tying it to the H-Barn, no, but I think it remains an interest on the council to do something in that regard for that population, to do that in the same way that we want to do some things for the opposite end of the generational spectrum as well.
Councilmember Lorisella?
Thank you, Mayor Boki. I'll echo what Councilmember Brandstetter said in that the needs of our community certainly include everything from childcare to a senior center. And while the space for the H-Barn is also important, I don't think they're necessarily coupled together. I would like to see things move faster so that there's a senior center before I need it. But I find myself often frustrated at the speed of municipal work. So, which also includes our first street end that we're developing. It seems to be taking way too long. So I don't know if that's a question for our board or for our Parks Department in terms of, can we accelerate by de-scoping and getting more things in work for street ends so that it's simpler and it doesn't necessarily have to be as in-depth and advanced and the Taj Mahal of lake frontage. I don't know if that's a question or just a statement, but thank you.
And I just want to follow up a little bit on that. And there was talk about the ad hoc committee. And to my knowledge, there was one meeting for the ad hoc committee. And the timing was not enough, in my opinion. And this is my opinion. We had one meeting and it was a summary of what had been done with the H-barn to that point. For members like myself who have been involved with it for 20 years, it was just that. It was a summary session. But there was never any time or additional meetings that were brought forward to have discussion on where could we change the design? How could you modify the design? What is an acceptable price range? All of those things to me are what would help and support the council and staff to make these decisions. Instead, there were a few ideas thrown out and it seems like we're gravitating towards that. And so to me, we really need to go back because it feels like we're gutting a long-term project. This H-barn project has been the will of the community for 20 years. And so Anessa specifically wanted to know about the senior services, but based on your answers, it's a little disappointing as well. And the reason it's disappointing to me is because the H-barn always was to serve as a multifunctional space. And so my hopeful answer that I was going to receive from you is that a portion of the time and of the days of the week would be dedicated in that building for senior services. It doesn't give the senior services the home that is deserved and needed for probably about 10 years now, maybe a little less. It's probably like 7 or 8, but it was right around COVID when we got kicked out of there. So we're about 6 years now. And searching, struggling, saying we have all sorts of satellite space for the senior programs. They're making do with what they have. They're using the lobby of City Hall. That is not adequate spacing for senior services. And saying that that is appropriate and right, it needs to be a bigger priority, needs attention. And so part of what I think is being lost here is it's turnover and change, and the community still has this will. I mean, they came out for the H-barn meetings. And so to me, we need to expand that H-barn discussion. Where can we find some acceptable compromise within the community to not only get the price down and something we can afford, but something that's going to have that multi-use space so it can be used for some senior services. It can be used for the community clubs to have a room, those sorts of things. And so it feels like we're going backwards on the H-barn, and this Parks Board and the community wants to see it move forward. And
Okay.
yeah.
We have a commitment from the city for $4 million in LTAC funds. That has never changed.
Right.
The Partners for Parks is in the process of raising $3.5 million. I don't think that's either hasn't changed or it's now increased. Any plan that I've ever seen is 10 million and up. So we have a $2.5 million problem. Now, we're looking for state money, although we missed the open window, I guess, for state money next year, which was unfortunate. And really did, I think, set us back. But there may be other opportunities for funding out there that we can find. And if we can get to that $10 million number, the more the merrier. If we can get federal money, if we get $3 million in federal, and when we were back there and they were saying they would get $3.5 million, well, then we're already over 10 million. So any state money would get us closer to the 14. The funding will determine what that place looks like. Right now, $7 million project I don't think anybody would be happy with it. I don't think anybody would be happy with it. I don't think this council would be happy with it. I don't think Partners for Parks would be happy with it. I don't think anybody would be happy with it. That's my personal feeling. So we're in the midst of continuing to design, and we got to go find more money. We just do. And, so that's where we're at with that. How it's going to be programmed, I don't know. But, and those are for future things. I agree with you on the senior center. We haven't been able, it's kind of getting tied up in discussions around a community center and that kind of thing. That could be 5-10 years out. So we don't have a good answer for you on the senior center. The street ends, the goal on the street ends was one every 2 years. And I think we're 3 or 4 years into it, and we're just now permitting the first one. So we got to get better at it. I'm not going to pull any punches. We have to get better at it. We have to get better at execution. And on the street ends, it plays into the opponents, and you know that there have always been opponents to water access in this community, vicious opponents, visceral, no public access kind of folks. And we play into their hands when we fiddle and diddle trying to get these projects done. We got to get done. We got to get better. We're going to get this Westlake one done fairly soon. And then, but we got to get better going forward. We do. We have to develop some core competencies in getting these things done. I'm not going to disagree with you on that.
No, and I'm not calling out that. And part of me, the concern is staffing and staffing levels, which is another financial another financial, issue that this board has got to work with. And yeah, we've got to live within our means, but many times staff are stretched so thin, they're really wearing 2 job titles, under one salary. And so how we can be less lean is something that can help with that. And I understand that's another challenge, but that's
We're hopeful.
that's why we sit in the seats we sit in, right?
We're hopeful in the next budget cycle, which is this fall. So we'll see what happens. I think people are aware of that.
Mhm. Do you guys have a question you want to go on?
I don't have the list. Let's see here. Tax explain. I know there's a great deal of interest with the urban forestry plan, even though it's parks. I know there's several members on the board that are driven by trees and taking care of trees and making sure that we don't keep taking them down. I know there was a lot of comment made about the trees at the elementary school on Custer. And there was a lot of sensitivity and feelings for, do we really have to do this? Can we look another way? Can we do it another way? So the urban forestry thing is a major component to, even though we don't have it, and we're very interested in, and we want to see what we can do to help. How can we help? How can we advance that and get it further along? That's just a comment that was made by several board members. You might want to.
Do you have any questions you want to ask, Shelley?
Okay. Any questions?
Michael?
I would just say that the city councils, we've had a couple of false starts on getting the urban forestry program going. But currently we have authorized and asked the planning commission to take a role in that. And they have, in terms of the natural environment things, have put together a number of task forces with people gathered from around the community who were interested in doing that. And our charge to them, and they have just started, I think most of their task forces have had one meeting, but one of those task forces is very specific to urban forestry and going forward. And so we're looking for input from that advisory group as to how we can get off the dime on going and doing that. There have been a lot of comments in the community around specific trees in specific locations to be able to go and do that. And the delta between an urban forestry and tree preservation and public safety and public safety related infrastructure improvements and the rights of private property owners, you know, it's working to make those mesh. It goes on. You know, you can't make any one of those three the only priority that trumps all the others. It's got to be looked at in some way to move forward with that. So that I'm hoping that by putting it in the realm of the Planning Commission, but giving them, not asking them as 7 people to figure it out, but authorizing them to go out into the community to assemble task forces of people with ranges of expertise that are on those committees will get us to a point that a year from now of when we maybe see a direction that we can actually move in that will have some level of acceptance broadly.
You know, just to follow up on the urban forestry. Follow up on the urban forestry is one component is education. You know, I drive around Lakewood and I see a lot of ivy that's choking out good fir trees or other trees, madrones, whatever. And that component of trying to get the community involved in, gosh, I need to start taking care of this ivy that is just taking over our forest, our urban environment in our city. And, you know, I know it's tedious. I know it's because we have that same issue in some parts of some of our parks that we probably need, and we are working on it, but it's a tedious task. So the education component is just one element, but it's an important element for the whole city.
Go ahead, Jason.
There was just a couple other points I wanted to hit on, and we'd be remiss. There's a couple of council members, Kate and Janet, who are definitely lake residents, and they have interest in kind of water safety and water quality through the management practices that we do at waterfront parks. And so having a boat cleanup, get the milfoil off, those sorts of things to help protect the lakes is of extreme interest of definitely those 2 members, and would be remiss if I didn't say something about that. There's probably not a council meeting I don't come to and I don't bring up the idea of maintenance, and that we are lacking in park maintenance, both from a labor standpoint and a budget financially for materials and equipment. And so I know that in the last budget cycle, some of the seasonal staff are rolled into a full-time worker, and I think we're seeing the troubles that brings. You need a healthy budget for seasonal employees, because Roxanne and the parks crew, they're running a 7-day-a-week operation, 18 hours a day. And at a certain point, you just need bodies. Even if they're just warm, it's good enough. But we don't even have money for warm bodies. And so this inadequate staffing on the maintenance side is definitely something that needs to be addressed. And we've been lacking in that area in the 23 years I've been on this board. Something that we need to address. And I mean, I think we're well over 10,000 hours short in labor needed around the Parks Department. That's serious. Yeah. And so, yeah, I brought up some concerns on the H barn and some things like that. And I didn't want to just come and complain or bring up problems, because I think there's opportunities for solutions out there. You know, an opportunity for solutions is let's reinstate that ad hoc committee and have conversations about the H barn and steps we can take, what would be acceptable to the community, and work with the community, not just say, hey, until we got money, we're done talking, because every year we kick it down, we're 30% behind the 14.2. And my number that I recall, it was about 11.2 once you kind of did the revisions, is really the number we were searching out. And so there's opportunities for solutions, creative thinking, but if we're not talking about it, we're not moving anything forward. And so that's what I'd really like to see out of that ad hoc committee, is not just one that's more of a a history lesson. It's actually trying to talk about the problems and find solutions. But everything we're talking about here is financial. And there's just not enough money to go around. It's not just in Lakewood, it's every municipal corporation across the country. And a big reason for that is inflationary concerns. And everything costs more. I mean, I can remember paying $1.98 for a 2x4. You go to Lowe's now and you're paying $7.98 a 2x4. It's insane. It's crazy. But we're operating on the same static operations budget. It's just carried over year to year, and we haven't seen any really increases in there. And it's unsustainable. And at some point, you're going to be shuttering things. And so some ideas I had for kind of potential opportunities is, I know in the municipality I work for, I had been planting seeds about park impact fees for years. Park impact fees offset, it's on new development, and it's just like a school impact fee, but it's for parks, and those fees are collected to offset the impact that are going to be on parks by this greater population. And the growth numbers that we're seeing from the state by 2044 are significant. We got a big multi-family housing development that's going in, and we could have collected money for parks capital on every door that was there. It's a missed opportunity, but there's going to be more development in this community between now and 2024. And are we going to leave that money on the table? Real simple. It's a small contract with a consultant. We'll study it. We'll go off of your recommendation or the city manager's recommendation. You can make that as low or as high as you want, but just getting them implemented and starting to collect some money is a start. The other is, you know, I know we get some money from the zoo truck tax that goes in. You know, to me, it feels like that money should go towards parks. If I'm not wrong, I may be wrong, and correct me if I am, that's fine. But I think it just kind of goes to the general fund. Even if you were to say 25% of that, 50% would be better, but you know, whole thing even better. But some dedicated money for parks. We've got to stop having parks be the redheaded stepchild and make it a priority. Big roads projects, get the money. Yes, they got a lot more federal money coming in for those, but we've got to make parks capital, park spending a priority. You know, other opportunities, do you go to the citizens for a maintenance and operations levy? Metro Parks Tacoma does it on the regular. King County Parks does it on the regular. Our citizens want good parks, and I think they're willing to pay for it. So if you put that out to them, we might just be able to levy something that way. There was one other that I was thinking about, but I didn't jot it down and it's not there. But I want to come with solutions, not just complain about the problems. And I think I've tried to balance a little bit of both of those. But ultimately, I think what the Parks Board wants you to hear is that we're here to advocate on behalf of the parks and for the parks and work at your direction. We just got to be called to take that input. And with that said, you've always supported the Parks Department. We appreciate that support, and we look forward to continued support in the future.
So and thank you for those comments. Edgewater Park, we're working on. We're still that's still going forward, and I think that is fully funded. And the Camp Murray site, I'm looking at Roxanne. We're studying that, right? We're in some mutual agreement with the state, but there are issues to work out with them, right? But both those, which will improve water access, are working their way through. But they are, as you know, anytime it's on water, it takes time, and there are unique challenges at the Camp Murray site. So as we're talking about adding parks because of capital, we are going to have to deal with the fiscal situation. So I appreciate that, but those are discussions we're going to have for budget time.
Yeah, and they're not easy decisions or discussions, and I recognize that, but we want to be a part in however we can support.
Yeah. Are there any other questions? Councilmember Lauricella.
Thank you, Mayor Boki. So in the next month or so, we're going to have an update on the Parks Legacy Plan, right? So in August, I believe. is that the opportunity for us to provide feedback and guidance for things to change in the realm of parks improvements or acquisition of properties through conservation easements or divesting park property if it's not being used, or prioritizing an operations and maintenance budget and that sort of thing, which then goes into our budgeting session. Is that the time to do that?
That would be the time to do
Yeah.
it when we start to see the parks plan, because it works its way to the council and the council eventually has to pass it in some format.
Right.
Because we need it as a planning document, but it would be, off the top of my head, I can't recall any huge debates we've had about any of the parks plans that have come up. But
No, but that's the time to
but
debate
that's
it.
the
It's
time-
as that's
the
being
time
developed.
to do it, because it might, yeah.
And I would think part of that conversation, it would be really valuable to have members of our Parks and Recreation Advisory Board at the table.
We plan on being there.
Thank you.
The other one that came to my mind, just if I can real quick, is just, I know it's career suicide for any of you sitting here, but you know, whether or not we've got room to do a lid levy lift, that would be another opportunity. And I know we're in one of the most anti-tax states you can get, but maybe there's a chance when a few of you are seeking retirement, and that might be a good time to do it as well. That way there's no stakes lost.
Some of the plans, we may get to the point where we're going to have to talk about the lid lifts, bonds, that kind of thing. And we'll probably need community support for that. I'm not saying that's going to happen in the
No,
next months, but
No, I understand, but that's at least it's in the mind and we're thinking through all options. And that's what I hear by that statement, Mayor.
yeah. Any other questions?
One more thing.
Councilmember Larsella.
Thanks, Mayor Boki. To that same subject, we were at the Association of Washington Cities conference a couple weeks back, and I sat in on a whole session on bond financing and debt capacity of cities and that sort of thing, which I think we'll be covering a little bit later on tonight as we get the update for our finance for the first and second quarter. So it's not out of the question. It looks like we do have a lot of capacity. The question is, do we want to take it on? Sure. So
Sure.
like there is the potential for it, even if
yeah.
it is
And
political suicide.
And it's weighing pros and cons because
Yeah.
they're there. you know.
Yeah, it's important.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I agree that we need to prioritize parks funding and spending. But I would also say that we have and past councils have done a really good job of that over the past 10 years. If you look at what has been built in the last 5 years, we've got over $18 million in parks projects that have been completed or are in the process of being completed. And earlier this year, we, as a council, made the decision to spend another $1.5 million or $1.8 million on an acre and 2/3 that we envision for more park space. So I don't want that to be lost, that we are, you know, we're doing roads projects, but roads projects, you know, come a little easier at times with how the funding is. Although I think we've kind of gone through the easy stuff, and now we're going to be facing some challenges on more road projects. But you know, we've done a really good job of spreading the wealth on parks projects at Wards Lake, Springbrook, Fort Steilacoom, American Lake, you know, all over the place, kind of all around the city. And then I don't even think that number even includes the 3 million for Edgewater, yes. So, you know, over the past 5-7 years, you know, we have invested a lot in parks, and I don't think that we're anticipating on ending that anytime soon, but we have made some good progress on that, and I look forward to continued successes on these projects where we can make do. So, thank you.
I aim to please, because you brought up next moves on the barn. some already answer part of your question. On next week, on the consent agenda, we have authorizing the execution of an amendment to the agreement with Graham Baba Architects for redesign, costing, and schedule extension for the H Barn project. So do you want to speak to that at all, Roxanne? Or who's our expert in that? We just need a few words.
Thank you, Mayor, Deputy Mayor. In terms of next week, what is on there is an amendment to the Grand Baba architectural contract, and it actually is the whole life of the project. We did have to reset it, the 30% design. So the results of the ad hoc, they redeveloped it. They came up with the costing. So some of it is that additional work to now give us what now on the construction side is a 10.2 estimated project that has part of it open air. So they did that work, but then also it includes taking that forward to the 60%, which is the current direction of council, which they want to deliver by the end of the year. And then because of the delay in the rescheduling, there were terms within their original contract that had some rate adjustment. So that's what makes up the amendment dollar amount that you will be entertaining next week.
Thank you very much. So does that helps? It helps me. Michael?
And I understand your plea for investment. We've, over 15 years, we've worked hard to look to be able to go and do that. And there were a couple of things when COVID took place. Quite a few communities around the canceled things that they were planning to do in parks and being able to go and do that. And we were one of the few communities that actually used ARPA dollars for parks, capital improvements, so that things that were planned wouldn't be canceled and would move forward. And Edgewater Park it remains the strategy in parks since incorporation has been to make significant improvements to the parks that we had, to create new parks, because one of the feelings that the public that really cares and wants parks, that was a factor in the incorporation vote about why they wanted to be safer, but they didn't want the unmaintained, not real inviting parks that were there. And so, where we moved to become the owners of Fort Silicon Park, that with community help acquired the land for Springbrook Park, okay, to be able to go and do that. That we've used some inventive funding to try to add property to actually make Wards Lake Park a substantial area, and then we've just completed a lot of things that are there. So, and I think that we'll continue to do that looking forward. And I would also say that with the exception of some projects, certainly at the state level, our legislative representatives in our districts in the 28th and 29th have been supportive of what we have made going forward for parks to be able to go and do that. And I'm hopeful that will continue. And the one thing, and although you didn't mention it, that I think is when you talk about natural resources, of staying active and on timeline with the project with University Place in Pierce County regarding the Chambers Creek canyon and making that it's not the traditional park with fields and that, but it is definitely a place for people to get out and engage with the environment to be able to go and do that, and those sorts of things to do that. We get a lot of discussions and comments about people who are cyclists who want us to make cycling more safe in the city, which is kind of an extension of the trail system, park system to do that. And because of the way we've gone about it, about neighborhoods first and then the periphery and where we are, that getting actual park activities and items in the downtown has not been at the top of the list until very recently of where we've gone forward to look to do that. And we got a piece of property that we don't know exactly what to do with. But it's there, and the fact that we have it means that it's somewhat of a blank canvas. So it's something that we want to invest in and is to enhance the Motor Avenue and the plaza going forward. And quite frankly, even though it's some trees and grass and benches, it's actually getting a lot of use to do that. And it was really noticed by folks of when we did the festival, the Dancing in the Streets festival. There were a lot of people that came to a realization that piece of green open space was there. And I see people there on a daily basis now, enjoying it to go on. So parks are a build it and they'll come type business, and we're continue to do that in as long as we don't lean towards fiscal irresponsibility.
Thank you, Mike. So yeah, he detailed the challenges. We're always looking for property. I mean, the staff has been tasked and they're working on that, of always looking for property, but it's infill and it's expensive and there's usually community opposition. So, and even the sellers sometimes are not very cooperative, to put it mildly. So we do face some challenges in that, but we're supportive of it, but it's costly, right? And there's only so much we're using REIT money and whatnot. So are there any other questions for them? You got any more questions for us? Councilmember Pearson.
Little different topic. So the last few things here in the 2026 work plan, playground replacement with legacy plan capital, and then where was the other one I was going with? Oh, just the legacy plan in general. But the playground replacement kind of got me thinking. We've had some brief discussions on council about trying to partner with the school district, and really, I see that as one of the biggest potential benefits to. They've got a ton of properties around the city with playgrounds and stuff already there. How can we partner with the school districts to get access to their playgrounds for folks outside of school hours in the summertime and things like that? The city manager has been talking to Mr. Banner and Clover Park School District folks about potentially something over at the Lake City property that they have, some sort of an agreement that we could put in some park facilities with them. hopefully they would stay there for a long period of time, because I don't think they have any plans to build a school there anytime soon. But some sort of partnership with the school district, I think would be really probably the biggest bang for our buck that we could get in getting access to people for, to folks, to parks. And I don't know how that fits in the legacy plan, but if I was thinking about the legacy plan, or, I guess not really the legacy plan, rather, it'd be more just your parks, your master parks plans, but identifying areas, specific school district sites that are in neighborhoods that are underserved by parks, and using that as like a pilot program with the school district on, okay, we've identified these particular schools are really good for meeting our needs, which are, providing parks for folks in those areas. And what can we do as part of an LILA or some sort of a, agreement with the school districts to get on the hook for some maintenance, some playground maintenance, or what do we have to do, right? So having those discussions, and I think that would be money and time well spent on that. So
Everything you're saying, council member, I think is accurate. It's something we've done in the past, and I can remember going down the slide with Mayor Doug Richardson at the time when we did Lake Louise Playground. And it was a great program and fantastic. It's all about relationships and relationships at the staff level, and it's cementing trust between the two agencies. That's when you'll have a successful program. The needs you talk about are outlined in our existing legacy plan, pros plan, and will be a part of this next one. We have identified where there is not a 10-minute walk or a 1-mile walk, and where those park deserts are in this community are identified. So to me, the strategy behind that is finding the schools in those locations. The comment in regards that it's going to be your biggest bang for your buck, I don't know that that's necessarily accurate, because you're going to be taking money from our small park system and putting it into a school property, right? And so, yes, we have expanded our reach and we've met some of the legacy plan goals, and we're getting recreation to more of our community and those underserved communities, which is a huge priority. But you then are reducing the pool of money you have to make those investments in our properties that Lakewood owns. And so bang for your buck for the community and a community win, absolutely. I don't know that it makes our money spent as efficient as maybe initially thought. So that would be my commentary on those, but we're absolutely supportive of an ILA or a program like that.
Right. Councilmember Lauricella.
Just a few final thoughts from me. So I appreciate that we, over the past 10 years, have made a lot of investments in acquiring more parks property and improving parks property, but it hasn't been coupled with increased funding for maintenance and operations of those parks. So we buy all sorts of stuff, and then it sits and the trash builds up, and we get lots of complaints from our residents because they're not being maintained as well as they expect and we expect as a council. We were short on resources 2 years ago. Attrition is really hitting our Parks Department hard right now, so we're even shorter on resources. And I think it's something that needs to be addressed sooner rather than later. And my last comment is back to the H-Barn topic. So a couple weeks ago, this council, I feel, was ready to approve 3.2 million in LTAC funds for a baseball team. That's no longer happening. We're about 3.2 million under that 10 million for the H-Barn. If we wanted to make it happen, could we? That's my last thought. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. If that is all, thank you very much.
Thank you, City
Thank you.
Council.
Thank you.
Ms. Miles, you're here to talk about Signal 2026 Utility Signal Box Wrap Project Update. You want to sit down or are you going to stand?
Presentation, so is it better to do it here?
You have
Okay.
this.
Always one of our favorite subjects. Cheap grace, as I call it. Who is Kellis Parlett? Who, who, welcome, Ms. Miles. Who is Kellis Parlett? Oh, okay.
Bueno, Kellis is a member of the Arts Commission who has been co-chairing this process. So I am representing Kellis in the Arts Commission to you tonight as part of the policy. They facilitate the process to determine the art, but they share it with you all before it is installed. Kellis is an art instructor. And so the art that you're going to see was actually done by students as we go through this. And some of them are very young students that put us all to shame, at least me. And some are of the older generation. But there was a process, and the students all basically entered like a contest, have donated their art, and these were all presented. So you'll see some numbers on slides. So that was just a way to identify the art to the Arts Commission. The submissions were all prioritized and then selected, and then they were matched up with the boxes. So the original goal was to be able to bring 8 new locations on, bringing us to 40. We're only at 39 because in the middle of this process, the box at Weller was moved. It's across from the school because we did some street work there, and it's no longer on the arterial. But I'm going to show you that art because the group would really like to see it used in a future session of moving forward the signal boxes. So when you hear from the Arts Commission, they're scheduled to be here September. They'll give you an update on how many boxes are left and how they want to proceed with that. Okay, so the first location is what we have looked at for 87th and Silicon Boulevard. Most of these are what's called a double box. Some of them are labeled that way because there's 2, even though some of them, as you notice, are made up of several different elements. So actually taking the art and wrapping them to fit is quite an endeavor. So here we have the art that was selected to go on that box location. And it was one of the first choices that the committee was really looking at what presents our community and what grabs people's eyes. And so they also think about the location that they place that at. Yeah. And apologies. Kellis is actually teaching tonight, which is why she's not. There we go. And then also this one, The Loyal Gaze. Notice that the submission is by Clara, and she's 13 years old. Stillicum and 88th is also a double box. And Wings Above the Pacific. Ten-year-old artist. Also, because there's the double box and they were looking at what pairs together nicely in terms of the colors in the images. Stillicum and Phillips Road is another location. Tides of Washington, and this is another priority one of the intricacies of this. The Symphony of the Lake Shores is another one that complements for that look. Is 9 years old. That's what I told you.
Where's that going? So both those are, oh, so you're,
Yes. And many times they were complementing in the way they fit together. So again, the location and how they'll face and how some of them wrap
Okay.
around.
okay, so the first one will be the cranes or the herons. And then the next one is Symphony by the Lakeshore from Crystal Chang.
Yes. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. She's on the commission and so the boxes at Silicum and Briggs Road, again, another double box. In this coastal look will be there, again, 14-year-old artist. And so this one they thought complement very well with it. And so, absolutely, sorry. Yeah, two different images, complementary, and again, that determination that they would fit together well. Mhm. So definitely some of them that are more natural and have a similar feel are in some of the same locations. And even though we call them double box, some of them have multiple units to them. So it really is the right complement together. And so they really were looking at basically the top 12 images and then partnering them together in the best location. So here, there's signal boxes, but there's two of them because they're in different locations. So we'll actually still be wrapping two. This is older artist, but really the memories that are all associated with Lakewood are pretty powerful in this selection. It's about two of their favorite locations. This is the only truly single box. It's across from Lakewood Gardens, and it's the warm page.
Oh, there is one.
Yeah, whether it's a poem or a sentiment that goes along with that. And then Bridgeport and Pacific. This one you'll get to see, and it's kind of amazing because these are two separate submissions. So this was by June, who is a 14-year-old artist. But the vibrancy of colors also come by Brianna, an 11-year-old artist. And so here we've given you how these two could complement together and really show how the two boxes come together. So both kind of the characteristics of the images and the colors. As I mentioned, this was going to be the one across from Custer Elementary that's off of Weller. So we didn't get to place this particular one, but we're holding this art. And so again, how does it fit with the location? How does it fit with the boxes that are there? So when we move forward with the next round, this is one that's sitting for consideration. So those are the boxes that have been selected. So there's 7 different locations. So they're ready for the wraps to be produced and put out there by the end of the year. And again, the Arts Commission plans to be before you in September and give you an update on how many additional boxes they believe are out there to do, as well as they'll talk to you about a sculpture project that was added to the work plan for Nyanza, and also an additional element of public art that they're looking at wrapping roundabouts, which again would fit similar to the signal box element because there was a to be determined public art project. So, and that would fall under these similar rules to be able to show you the art that is being determined for any roundabout. That's what I have for you tonight.
Well, there's a whole world of roundabouts out there. So, we hear about them all the time. We must have 100, 150 or something. So. Who would, thank you very much.
If
welcome.
some driver
Councilmember Branstad.
get involved in a single roundabout, they use it as 10 as they're going around. I do say that I really appreciate the reaching out to young artists that the commission did in their selection process. As obviously, this is many more young artists than any other sequence, your annual sequence that we've had. The only it is somewhat similar to the reach out for art to young people that we have done with stormwater calendars annually to do that. And with that particular group at the time when calendars are produced, but in this case, once these have all been installed, it would be nice if all the artists from 9 to 60 could be invited here to a council meeting and be thanked and recognized to do that, and that maybe that there can be some temporary display of a collage of what you've shown us today, that is put out at some events. So what is the expectate that we will actually see these?
In terms of the timing, like I said, they're ready to go to print and install. So definitely within the next 2 to 3 months, all of them will be up. We're already working on the communications plan that goes as well, so can definitely add that opportunity as the promotions and the rollout, the communities to be done, to have the artists invited as well.
If there is some sort of a display of these, that sounds like it was something that would fit into trucking. But I look forward to meeting some of those people who are much younger than I and can and can do that kind of work 1,000 times better than I.
Mhm. The commission will be discussing it, but I think they found it really fruitful as well. So it wouldn't surprise me if they circle back to doing that again while they also do some more of the traditional. Mhm.
Councilmember Pearson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A couple of questions. One of them, so when as part of the wrap, does it show who the artist was and their age and what the name of it is, or is it just the artwork itself?
Yes, I believe the wrap, and I'll verify that usually we allow them to sign, but there's a kind of a plaque that is recognizing,
Okay.
I think, on each one of them.
Awesome.
So I'll be looking at proofs next week and we'll
Okay,
make sure.
perfect. I wanted to make sure that was captured because that's just like, when you're looking at these and it's just incredible. You're like, there's no way a 9-year-old just did that. That's amazing. Like, wow. And then, so we've often talked about Gravelly Lake and Nyanza being, somewhat of a linear park and having, some an art walk and stuff. And I'm excited that one of them is on, the part of the loop. And I like the idea of incorporating some text into some of these to give people, it's a bit of a destination and you can, sit there and maybe if we have a bench and take a break and read, whatever it is. I'd like to see if there's more opportunities for some art boxes around the loop. And then, if we could expand on that, and that could be our art loop or our art walk or something, that we have. So, anyway, yeah, these are amazing and I'm excited to see them out.
So I'd like to call on our rep to the Arts Commission, the distinguished Deputy Mayor, Ms. Bell.
You know, I'm all about this. I've seen these and I think our Arts Commission is absolutely fabulous. They do amazing work and are bringing amazing things. I actually can't wait for you guys to see some of the ideas for the Gravelly Loop, the Gravelly Lake kind of new proposal about the sculpture that we were talking about, different things that are happening through there. So I think that'll be very exciting and fit into possibly making that a little bit more of a place that you could, a destination. I know since the walk around there is just incredible. But I have seen all of these and I saw their pairings and I love how the Arts Commission gets together and is very thoughtful with all of this. They really do think it through. They make sure that they are keeping our city beautiful and making it prettier and prettier with each piece of art that goes in. So I just wanted to put out my appreciation for that and that they work so very hard and they come up with really creative ideas and effective ideas too. So I think throughout the years, especially with this project of wrapping all the boxes, you can really see the beautification through the city and how it does make a huge difference. So I just wanted to put that out and sing my praises for the Arts Commission. Thank you.
So, great job. I mean, I think they just did an outstanding job, and we're all about kids. So we're even more excited that they're kids who are humiliating us in our artwork. Or certainly, I'm beyond humiliation on my artwork, but just great job of selection, great job of artwork. And I think we do need to find a time where we properly, um, bring them in, and we'll give them coins or something, and or some kind of other recognition for the work that they've done, so that they can, so we can be good stewards of their artwork, and so 20 years from now they can come back and see it. So um yeah, we're all excited. So work out with the city manager when would be a good time, you think, for them to come on in, or like Mike said, at a special event or something. I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. We
Whatever
certainly will
works.
be very excited about it. And again, the instructor who facilitated the process and who's helping to get the wraps done teaches on Monday nights, or otherwise she'd be here. But really,
Yeah.
they have definitely grabbed hold of this and took probably all your prior direction, to heart and making this project happen. So it's been a privilege to jump in. I'm the messenger, right? This all was well underway. Yeah.
And I make the joke, right, about cheap grace, but I think we get more compliments per dollar spent on those wraps than we do anything else. I mean, I just can't think of anything that people are like, wow, that looks great. So we're looking forward to the next round. Thank you. Now we call on the Deputy City Manager, Ms. Ta Kraus, who is going to bring us up to date with the review of the first quarter financial report. And again, thank you, Ms. Kraus, for all the information you provide us. I don't know that any sitting legislative body in the state of Washington receives more information on a quarterly basis than we do. So Councilmember Branstetter would remember a time where we got maybe not even 10% of this information. So we really do appreciate that there's a lot of information there, and we can cut it all sorts of ways. And if anybody has any questions of Ms. Kraus, feel free to jump in and ask questions, and she'll go through the first quarter report.
Yeah, and really what I'm just going to be looking at or speaking to is on page 42, which is your sorry. So on page 42 of the packet is the general and street fund, and just really a few highlights. I know my presentation is not going to be as colorful as the art wrap. And Councilmember Branstetter said this isn't really like the state of the city, how it would be presented. But overall, our revenues are down compared to where I thought we would be, taking a look at the past 5 years trends. And primarily it's in our development service fees. Last year, we did really well with all of the permits coming in. So it's down, but we're monitoring it. And then our local sales and use tax has gone up. So they sort of offset each other, but not quite enough yet. In speaking with Director Remack, it could be just a timing of when the permits are issued or when we collect the fees for that. Our sales tax seems to continue to increase. On the expenditure side, we're seeing similar trends as we did last year. Our police department is up compared to where I thought we would be, but that also has to do with some of the termination pay. So when people retire, they're cashing out, and those amounts are very big. There's some overtime, and there are just some timing differences of when charges are made. So we'll be watching that as well. We had a similar situation last year, but general fund was able to cover it. So not as huge of a concern. But I will give you some, well, let me just address a couple things that came up. So for the park sales tax, that is in the general fund, but it can only be used for parks. And so that's where the money is. In terms of, I think they also brought up about different financing levy, lid lifts and such. Yes, we can do all of those things. Some of them will require a vote of the people, the 60% voter turnout approval and such, but there are quite a few different options. It will, cost for taxpayers and such, but there's some options. I wanted to give you just some updates. I ran some numbers just to see where we were or where we are as of today. And I'll also provide these to the city manager so that he'll if we get newer numbers, I'll also include that. But sales tax just for the first 4 months were up by about $930,000. And a lot of that has to do with construction. So when you look at it from construction, it's not an ongoing, but we do have some services that are also up. And that's more ongoing in nature. In line with the sales tax, our regular sales tax, we have the Parks and Criminal Justice sales tax, which is slightly up compared to where I thought we would be for budget. Real estate excise tax is slightly down. It's actually down for the first 2 months by about $80,000. Admissions tax is up by $18,000 through May. Gambling tax is down by $43,000. So we have a lot of areas that are major areas that have increased, and then somewhere in between, some that increase, some that decrease, and in at the end of the day, they'll offset each other. So that's really all that I have in terms of updates. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Does anybody have any questions for Ms. Kraus? Councilmember Brandstetter.
When we allocated the $2 million from that economic development fund that we created in 2000 or something like that, and we said that we would use it for Edgewater Park and the downtown park. How have those funds been spent? And what was the division of how much of those went to each of those two categories?
So I don't have that readily available. I did track it for the carry forward budget adjustment. I'm happy to track that again on how much we've spent, but we've spent a good portion of that, if not all of it already.
Okay, I guess, have we spent it in both, towards both goals, both doing some things in the downtown and at Edgewater, or has it all gone to Edgewater?
I think it's been more of a combination, probably leaning more towards the Edgewater Park, but I'm happy to provide that information to city manager, and maybe he can include it as part of his update or so.
Or if that could be addressed in the next quarterly report, that would be fine.
Sure.
For me, anyway.
Yes.
Any other questions for Ms. Kraus? Councilmember Lorisella.
Thank you, Mayor Bookey, and thank you, Ms. Kraus. Question that you may not have the information in front of you right now, but I'd be interested in knowing later. We were just talking about parks stuff. How has our parks operations and maintenance budget changed over the past few years as we've taken on, as we said earlier, lots of capital projects? How has our operations and maintenance budget adjusted along with that?
I would say, just without looking at the numbers, it's not I think there's been a lot more going on in parks. I mean, if you look at it, parks in terms of maintenance and then parks and recreation, the activities that you've seen, I mean, it's grown substantially. We've not added a whole lot in terms of maintenance staff to handle those events. Not a lot of, I mean, we've added some dollars, but I guess just overall, just looking at the growth, I don't think it's
not proportionate.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
So, while other people are thinking about it, I have a couple of questions. Rental safety program on page 92 of our packet, 53 in your, and yeah, so the registration program fees, I'm looking at 291 in 2024, 443 in 2025. And this year we budgeted 273, which is down significantly. And then we've only brought in 111 so far this year. 273. Why did we change the fees and we didn't change that number? Is that possible?
No, I think what happened was there was a lot more activity in 2025 and not as many that was required in 2026.
But aren't the fees charged every year, no matter what?
Yeah, but I don't think it's, I think some of it is inspections as well.
Oh, okay, so it's not just the fee,
Right.
it's the right, and we've changed the rules now, so when we need to figure out how that's working at some other point in time. Okay, and then what was the professional services 286,717? Was that the inspections that we're no longer really doing now?
So this would be personnel costs that run this rental housing safety program. And so it would be like, I think you're all familiar with like Heather Halberstadt. I think she does some of that program in here as well. So it'll be the staff allocation of their time in the personnel costs.
But that doesn't look like that's really happening this year.
This is only for the first quarter.
Okay. Okay. I don't know that I have any other questions going on. I do want to talk about the park sales tax a little bit, just so we're all on the same page. And you correct me if I'm wrong. The park, so the 1/10 of 1%, and I'm looking at Roxanne because she is probably involved in when they put it together. The 1/10 of 1% is countywide. Metro Parks Tacoma, the Zoo Trek gets half right off the top. Then everyone else, then everyone goes the rest is done by population, the other 50%, and that includes the people who are in Metro Parks. So Metro Parks gets 2 bites at the apple. They get Zoo Trek gets 50%, then all the folks in Tacoma who are in Metro Parks get their portion along with the people in the county, and so ours is this population. So as a percentage, we're always going to be dropping because we're not growing as fast as the rest of the county. So it's been nice to get, but it's not
I mean, it's approaching $1 million.
there you go. Yeah, if
So-
it grows 7-8% a year or more. Okay. Anything else we should know about? Like the REIT, I guess that's just because rates are high and activity has slowed down.
Activity has slowed down, interest rates, all of those different factors are contributing to it. It is lower than we have seen in the past. But again, we'll take a look at where the dollars are and what projects have been committed and just see if we can swap out some of those resources.
Any other?
Yeah, I think what you always ask about is ARPA. Are we going to spend all of the money?
Are we going to spend?
We should be spending all of the money. As of second quarter, we have about $840,000 of ARPA funds and about $130,000 of interest earnings. And again, whatever is not spent, the city council's already passed the policy to use it towards downtown parks and Edgewater. So we should be good.
And we could just convert that over. Call it interest or something, right? There's something. Okay. All right. Any other questions for Ms. Kraus? Councilmember Branstetter, do you have a question? Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Ms. Kraus. So next up is review of the resolution of intent regarding the Unified Regional Approach to Homelessness, the URA. It begins on page 182 of your packet. So that's almost towards the end. And we are looking for Ms. Spear online. Oh, you're gonna. Oh, Ms. Silva. Okay. Thank you very much, Ms. Silva.
So I'll do my best to step in for Miss Spears, as I know she is out of the office but was trying. Oh, I will.
Who's gonna go? You were.
How about I'll start and then Tiffany can jump
Okay.
in. So starting on page 182 of your packet is a draft resolution as follow-up from your June 8th study session on the URA with Pierce County Council Chair Hitchin, as well as direction to staff to prepare that resolution. Ms. Spear, can you hear me?
Yes, can you hear me?
Okay, we just started with a resolution. Can you brief the council on its contents?
Yes, thank you. And first, Mr. Mayor, members of council, my apologies for not being there this evening. I think as Ms. Silva just said, I've been ill and just am not ready to try to drive around yet. So I thank you for your indulgence. I think also, as Ms. Silva just said, this begins on page 182 of your packet. I'm going to share my screen, so hopefully be able to get you to that shortly here. So if you're able to see that all right, I'll go ahead. Can someone confirm you're able to see?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. So you've had several actually discussions about the unified regional approach since February of this year. Earlier this year, you had the consultant from Uncommon Bridges in front of you. And then just a few weeks ago, County Council Chair Hitchin and council staff, Mary Connolly was there along with myself in the audience. But the unified regional approach is something that Councilmember Brandstetter has been serving on the elected leadership group as it has been planned. And I've been serving on the staff working group over the last year and a half. So what you now have in front of you is a draft resolution that is the culmination of the work of the elected leadership group so far. It's something that you had requested come before you. So I'm going to just walk you through it. Please feel free to stop me as I'm doing this, or if you have questions toward the end. This is based on a template that the Council Chair Hitchin provided to the city manager, I believe, after the conversation a few weeks ago. But this just recognizes the ongoing work that Lakewood does to support homelessness services and human services by setting aside 1% of the city's general fund on an annual or biannual basis for that work, which includes emergency shelter and other homeless services, as I mentioned. This also recognizes the Lakewood Historical Support for Living Access Support Network, or LASA, and more recently, the work that's been done with ARPA dollars for not only the hygiene center and then additional units to be built on the LASA campus, but also the ARPA funding that went to student mental health and workforce training programs during the COVID event. It also recognizes the Tacoma Housing Justice Project funding that was provided. And through that program, 645 clients were served through what was then hosted at City Hall and continues to be hosted at City Hall on a weekly basis, even though the ARPA funds have been exhausted. There is also now continuing support through Pierce County's eviction prevention program for Lakewood's homeless seeking that service, just so you're aware. And then it moves into some of the other recognition language within the resolution of intent, which is stating essentially that the city is interested and supportive of creating a, quote, unified regional approach to end homelessness or to address homelessness. And what that would require of the city of Lakewood are a couple of bullet points I'll walk through in just a moment. So far, we have, in terms of support from other jurisdictions, not only Pierce County and Tacoma, but Auburn, Edgewood, Fife, Gig Harbor, Ording, Lakewood, Puyallup, and University Place have all been involved with the staff and elected group levels. As of tonight, actually, we now have resolutions of intent adopted by Pierce County, Gig Harbor, and Fife. And I know there are other jurisdictions that are scheduled in the relatively near future to take these types of resolutions up as well. The resolution here on its second and third pages are going through some additional clauses that talk about the idea here is creating a system. So homelessness, is rare, brief, and non-recurring, and that an ILA is the ultimate intention under state law to be developed, but the group is not ready to do that. There's a recognition that time is needed to develop an acceptable ILA for a formal agreement that multiple jurisdictions would sign on to. And so this resolution of intent is to express support and while that ILA work is ongoing. So the resolution then concludes with City of Lakewood Council expressing support for the establishment of an ILA and identifying actions that Lakewood would do to align its homelessness response with other Pierce County governments. which, as I mentioned, are listed now in the final sections of the resolution in bullet form. Section 2, though, just directs the city manager to begin working with other governments to create that ILA, and it would come before the council for consideration once it's completed. And then in the meantime, Lakewood expresses its intent through the URA implementation and preparation for that, the following additional steps. Updating or developing data collection requirements for homeless service providers, developing or updating a procedure to connect homeless residents to housing and shelter via existing systems like coordinated entry and the shelter access hub, developing or updating an inclement weather policy, including coordination with other governments and services to connect homeless people with resources during such events, identifying locations within the city of Lakewood that may serve as inclement weather shelters, and then supporting the establishment or expansion of at least one homeless intervention within Lakewood. A final section that's important for the council to note: this resolution does not authorize execution of an interlocal agreement, nor does it create binding legal or financial obligations for the city. One thing I would note, and the city manager, I believe, and the elected leadership group, I believe, will be getting this information as well at their next meetings. But at the last staff working group that I was at this last Thursday, there was discussion about a potential couple of options in terms of financing for the URA. There was discussion, I know, when the county council chair was at the Lakewood City Council a few weeks ago about an anticipated amount. There were some questions about that and the scheme behind it, where the dollars were based on population. Are there other options? I know other jurisdictions have asked that question as well. And so now there's apparently a couple of other alternatives that will be coming before the elected leadership group to look at, and they would be shared with you and the city manager as soon as they become available. So with that, Mr. Mayor, I'm happy to answer any of the other questions. Otherwise, this is for you to be discussing whether the city is ready to move forward with signing this resolution. If the council wishes to do so, it's scheduled on your agenda for next Monday night for action.
Thank you, Ms. Spear, for that information. Do you have any questions for Ms. Spear? Any comments? Sorry, do you have? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Ms. Spear. So, if I understand this correctly, this is a resolution of intent, right? So it's that we intend to support a unified approach with the rest of our cohorts around the county. It's not actually committing us to anything at this point other than saying that we're here to support them.
Mr. Mayor, if that question is for me, the answer would be yes, but I think I see Mr. Brandstetter's hand raised.
Councilmember Branstetter.
We do. Yeah, yes, Mr. Mayor, and I'd urge us to take this step. I guess that I would tell you that when 2 years ago, when this process started, I really thought we would by this time have gotten to the point of where we had gotten consensus from some governments on some more substantial things that actually would make a difference, being able to go and do that. But that has proven really hard. However, one of the things that's there that if we don't start working together on some things, and we continue to just do it as we have been, we'll never make significant progress. So at this point, because this process, working to develop the URA, is essentially being funded by some leftover ARPA dollars that were originally in the contract with Uncommon Bridges, and then they ended the contract early, and so there's some funding for the staff that are trying to move this forward at the county to move forward. That of the 5 things of where they've sort of asked Lakewood to do something, I would tell you that the most significant to us is the first one, which is develop or update data collection requirements for homeless service providers for the contracts that we write for people to do that. Because we have, most of the municipalities in the county are using the same system. And we, a number of years ago, stopped requiring our people that we contract with to enter data on their things into that system that was essentially at that time, some of our feedback from some of our providers is that it was onerous and it that detracted from funds that they could spend on doing things. That the system has been refined, but it was at our next set of contracts that we award in human services, the ones that specifically are targeted at homelessness will have to move into changing in the contract to be able to do that. And we may get some feedback from some providers who are not used to having to do that. The rest of them are things we have already been doing, are in the process of doing to do that. And that the very last bullet, the support establishment or expansion of at least one homeless intervention in Lakewood, there are actually several of those in the CDBG plan that we just approved. So, that's not really a thing where we guys are, that's not a, what are we going to do? It's, we're already doing more than one, planning to move forward with that. I think that close to the end of the year, we will see they're going to be real efforts to move towards an ILA that it will not be a list of mandatory things to do, but a pathway to get to determining things to do. And I predict that because the funding the county is using to staff the people that are working on this, being ARPA funding, it kind of has got to get, it's going to run out. And that's why at this juncture with this ILA, there's no cost for Lakewood or any of the other cities are not being asked to contribute to continuing the work over the next few months.
Thank you, Councilmember. And I'm glad because you answered my question then, because my question was on those first 3 or 4 items, develop or update data collection, develop or update a procedure to connect homeless residents to housing, develop and update an inclement weather policy. I was just wondering, is that a hardship for us? But apparently it's not, because
we are ahead of the average in the county in terms of being largely through the fact that we work closely with University Place and Silicum and West Pierce and that, and we have processes for inclement weather. Whereas there are some cities in the county that just don't have a plan and they don't have a thing that's funded, particularly some of the smaller jurisdictions.
Do we have a plan for heat right now?
For what?
If it's 105 degrees next week or something, do we have a plan?
And we have a plan, and we have implemented it over the years of from time to time. West Pierce kind of monitors that, but we've opened this room at times of where we've had folks going on, and we have a number of other sites in the city that actually have some supplies stockpiled should they ever be needed as a severe weather shelter or a severe disaster shelter for that matter.
Be great to have a community center, wouldn't it? Any other questions for Ms. Spear, Ms. Silva, Council Member Pearson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had a question about what, gosh, I lost my spot here. Mr. Brandsetter touched on it. It was in here. It says that Lakewood should get at least one of a homeless intervention or something. That was like a defined term, it seemed. What does that really mean? What are the different, what does that mean? Out of this, we could get a rental assistance or something, you know, is that as little as that?
You want to take a
Uh,
quick?
I,
Oh, let
I
Tiffany.
would just say that when that has been discussed, that could be a myriad of things because different jurisdictions see homelessness different, but that they will do at least one thing in a more enhanced or one thing new than what they have been doing. That most of the jurisdictions are actually going to do this in a kind of in a combination of some of their efforts around affordable housing for the lower income bands of folks that are there. So and it is not specific and to be honest, the resolution doesn't even ask us to report what it is. You know, at some point in time, it's kind of like at the end of the year, what have you accomplished? And we would have things that a number of things we're doing or planning to do that we could choose from to say that was our one. Well, we will have more than that.
Ms. Spear, would you like to weigh in on that?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would just respond to the question that the way this could easily be satisfied is to in this next biennial budget, just take a note of what has been done historically and what the council wants to continue to do with its homeless services as have been done historically, or if there are changes you want to make, but taking that and furthering it along. So whether it's continuing and expanding support for LAHSA, whether it is looking and identifying other shelter opportunities within the city, whether it is providing additional funds to other human services organizations, as the city has done with CDBG or other funding in the past. All of those things would satisfy this bullet. And then if there's any other new original things that the council would want to add to the budget as well. So it's a really open option. And I think Lakewood will not have difficulty in satisfying it.
Thank you. Councilmember Pearson.
Thank you. This is a good idea. I do have some hesitation about, I feel like we're potentially committing to something that I don't have a good understanding of how it actually benefits the Lakewood homelessness population. And that's hard for me to like, you know, we're committing to doing something and there's no end goal in sight of exactly what that is. Like, what are we're going to do more coordination. We're going to fund some nonprofits, but like at the end of the day, is there an actual goal of, you know, dropping the number of Lakewood homeless folks from X number to X number? It's like, well, no, it's ending it. That's very vague. We're not going to end homelessness with this, right? Like, but so that's where I'm a bit cautious with this, and I think that the further down the road we get, you know, we approve a resolution that says what it says. You know, each time we take one step closer without getting, you know, being more specific and targeting what we want for Lakewood in this, the further away we get from being able to incorporate anything. So that would be my caution to this is I would like things to be more specific. Like, you know, I don't know if it would be, I think it would be beneficial to take a look at some of this language and really pick it apart and say, yeah, okay, so what does one homelessness intervention, and instead of saying homelessness intervention, let's say exactly what we want out of this, right? Like, we want one of XYZ, you know, things to happen, rather than, well, it's very vague and we got some rental assistance or something. Well, we're already kind of doing that. Like, that's not a benefit of us joining this, right? So I just want to make sure that as we move along, that we still have, you know, how does this benefit Lakewood residents and Lakewood homeless population? That's what we're here to do. And I like the, homelessness doesn't end at city borders, so I get that element of it, but I really have a hard time with not seeing how, what the end goal is here for Lakewood and how it really directly benefits Lakewood. So, thank you.
Don't,
If I could,
yeah,
Mr. Mayor.
go ahead, Tiffany, then when Councilmember Lindholm has a question.
I'm sorry. I'll wait till council's done.
Oh, no, go ahead, Ms. Spear.
Okay. Well, what you see here in section 3 is my only response is that this is what Lakewood is agreeing to do per adoption of this resolution. And so, should the council wish to change what it is wanting to do right now while the interlocal agreement is put in place and then the implementation of the URA over time occurs, you have the prerogative here to change this wording. So if there's more specificity about any number of these things, you're welcome to do that. But at the same time, I think when it was drafted, the reason it was drafted this way is to allow the city a lot of discretion in terms of how to, quote, satisfy them. So there may be a resolution that you adopt today, but in your budgeting process, for instance, maybe you would want to identify a specific thing that would satisfy that last bullet point. Or maybe you want to look at more than one of these about how you are actually going to do this within the city of Lakewood, moving forward with your next budget decisions. So this doesn't tie you down, nor does it limit the council with how it wants to handle homeless services for Lakewood residents. And it also doesn't say you have to do a specific certain item to satisfy each one of these bullets.
Okay. Any other questions? Oh, Councilmember Lindholm, getting it now.
Yeah, I was gonna, I guess, echo in some ways what Ms. Spear said, and I share your concern. We want to be very clear on what we're agreeing to here. As I understand it, the way these conversations really took shape is if we were to put something very specific here, we're now tying ourselves to that intervention. So if we said we want a high barrier family shelter in Lakewood, and then a year down the road, for whatever reason that doesn't work, we want to put it in the community center, and the community center doesn't come to be, whatever that is, it makes it harder to pivot. And so this allows us to do, I think, allows us to contribute in the way that feels good to Lakewood, but also means that our folks have somewhere to go for whatever they're facing, because there's so many different kinds of homelessness. And the person who is very much needing detox is different than the family of 4 who has, nowhere to stay for a month. And so it allows us to input there what feels good to us, also knowing that we don't have to provide everything, which is, I think, an incredible burden lift.
Councilmember Brandstetter.
And I would just address that there are quite a few folks that have been working on this that wanted to get where you were. They wanted to get to where there are some very specific actions that could be taken that would actually impact people. And in some cases, most of the ideas around that had to do with putting specific kinds of things in contracts. And they just haven't gotten to a consensus around that. And part of that is that some of the people who are in the business of helping homeless people are leery about that. But for this resolution here is that I think there is a commitment to try to work towards what would be beneficial on behalf of a lot of communities, even though communities view homelessness and have different things that they want. But this resolution allows you to sort of stay at the table while they're developing the ILA that might have more structure that would cause some things that we could do. I will say that one thing that is in this that will actually help folks from Lakewood that are getting engaged with the homeless response thing is that first thing about the data collection requirements. Because a common thing is that when data collection requirements vary, the feedback from homeless folks is that every time they have to engage with a new contractor or a new something, they have to go through a complete new litany of intake questions because there's no database of where someone can say, oh, well, you're already in the database, so we know all this, so you don't have to do all of that. And folks who are experiencing homelessness have said that's a real frustration right now, is that there's not a central thing of where you go to the second person for help. He wants to know all the same things you told the first person. And that the data collection process that's envisioned would mitigate that somewhat. How much remains to be seen, how well it's put into practice by providers.
Thank you. So this is what I'm hearing, and then I'm going to express an issue that we're having as a council. So it sounds like generally there's support, but there's some concerns. Councilmember, this is scheduled for a vote next week. Councilmember Bell and I are going to be gone. I think we'd like to be part of the discussion at final. And I also have, Councilmember Talbot is going to need time to kind of get her questions answered. So I'd like to propose to do that we do is take this off next week's agenda and move it to the first, the next council meeting, which would be Monday, August 3rd, if that's generally okay with everybody. And then I think we'll have everybody there. Is everybody going to be there on the 3rd, or are we missing anybody for you? And because I want to give Councilmember Talbot time to get engaged on this. If Councilmember Pearson has some issues, he can work on some amendments or amend it. And then I think the deputy mayor and I would like to be there for the final. Is that okay for everybody then? Okay, good. We'll move that then to Monday, August 3rd for final. Does that work for the thing, Mike?
Well, I think it works for the folks that are trying to get as many groups to pass a resolution. The fact that we'd say, we have a date when it's on the council agenda, and if that date is August 3rd, that'll be sufficient.
Yeah, I really want to be respectful of Councilmember Talbot right now too. And then of course, Deputy Mayor Bell's a player, and if she blesses it, then it's going to get done. So, just joking. Anyway, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. Spear, for hanging in there.
Thank you. I appreciate again being able to be remote tonight.
Thank you. Hope you feel better. Ms. Silva, thank you very much. Okay, so next, reports by the city manager. Mr. City Manager Doug Russell.
Yes, Mayor and Council, just a couple items. One, tomorrow night, summer concert series continues. We also have conflict with the Tillicum Woodbrook Neighborhood Association meeting, so we'll put that out there. Couple things as we look forward. Did have a request from Pierce Transit, wanted to come approach council to talk about their sales tax initiative. I don't know if that's something that council wants to schedule, or it's not really business, but more of a platform. So I just need to get direction from the council if you would like something like that scheduled. And don't have to answer it tonight. We can bring it back up later on if that works. And last thing, as we're getting ready to hit our next legislative session, it's just around the corner, even though it seems like it just ended. Want to reset kind of our state and federal platforms. I'll send out some meeting invites, or not invites, but some dates to try and schedule it as a standalone special meeting. Probably look at a Tuesday or Wednesday towards the end of August, like on the 18th or 19th, 25th, 26th, somewhere in that time frame, just to try and get that started so we have a legislative platform that's kind of rebuilt and more conducive to some of the things that we're facing, that we're looking at as a new body and moving forward. And that's all I have.
Any questions for the city manager? Okay, council member comments. Let's start with council member Laura Sella.
Thank you, Mayor Boki. Looking forward to Farmers Market tomorrow. And I wanted to thank council for covering last week. I know you were very short-staffed with just 4 of you here, but you did an excellent job of navigating a very vocal crowd, which I appreciated as I was listening in. So last week I wasn't here because I had gotten away for my 15th wedding anniversary and went up to the San Juans and saw some of the biggest and healthiest madronas and Gary oaks I've ever seen up there. So there are oaks up there that are easily 4 feet and larger in diameter and just look really good. So something to aspire to over the next 500 years. Lastly, something that was brought up by Councilmember Brandstetter on my behalf last week. I understand it's late in the process and potentially costly, but I'd proposed a solution to be looked at in regards to the Dower Oaks, which involved looking at potentially a permeable asphalt path through the property there. But I know the city won't move forward unless we have a decision on behalf of council, so we have to have enough people interested. So I will leave with that to see if there's other interest in having the city look into that, because I know they need an official agreement in order to contact the school district in an official capacity. Thank you.
On that, I guess that's good. And I have you down tomorrow for Tillicum, but I also had you how is it that you end up in Tillicum like every month? In the Tillicum Woodbrook meeting, it's June 9th. Oh, no, that's Lindholm. You end up going 3 or 4 times this year.
He's new.
So my question is who's going to go out to Tillicum Woodbrook tomorrow?
I was hoping to go to the farmer's market, but if needed, I can.
The deputy mayor, are you planning to go? Or?
Yeah.
Okay, so if anybody can go, I mean, I can go too, I guess. It's at 6:30. And it goes for like an hour and a half. So, Councilmember Lindholm, but apparently every other month is Councilmember Lindholm.
Actually, looking at my calendar, I'm not available. I have a different board meeting at that time.
Okay. So, Councilmember Pearson, I'm calling on you to talk, not to volunteer.
Thank you. I took it that way as well. Thank you. Had our second or third sewer general plan review meeting last week and continuing that forward. So got some input from the various parties that are involved in that, and I think that I'm hoping that one element that may kind of come to us as a benefit that's not directly tied to sewers, but rather the environmental element is getting all of, Parkland Spanaway connected into the sewer system, so we have less nitrate and organics kind of coming through the aquifer into our lakes. So hopefully, I think that if you look at Stillicum Lake, Spanaway Lake rather, is really, in the mecca of all of the septic systems and has had a historically horrible time dealing with those issues. So I think that as that would maybe be one of the first ones to kind of feel some relief as sewer does slowly expand. I think that our lakes could see some of that relief over time too. So yeah, and then outside of that, trying to hit up the farmers market as well. And I don't know if I would be able to attend the Tillicum Neighborhood Association meeting tomorrow. And as far as the project, well, I think it's a good idea. My preference on how we should really be, the city staff, should really be dealing with trees along arterial projects or projects in general is having some sort of, and I think that we do have evaluation criteria. So, however that's evaluated early on, it really should be part of the early on process to drive the design rather than when we're, you know, at this stage in the project and we're trying to get things out to bid, or we are out to bid, or those sorts of things. So that would be my preference, is to do it earlier. And I don't know what sort of challenges could come and how, you know, kind of project delays. So I'd be cautious about changing things at this stage is all. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Brandstetter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, first of all, to address the Custer Delaware Oak thing, I'm not in favor of going back and at the 11th hour again, looking at that. This was something that has been looked at by the council a number of times in past years. And keep in mind that in the original discussions, they were talking about maybe needing to cut down 17 trees. And staff went through and re-looked at it, and it's got it down to 4 oaks and 3 other trees, I think is where, or 3 oaks and 3 other. But first and foremost, this is a safety project. And the most important parts of the safety project that need to be, that we should not delay, have to do with the ones that deal with the roadway and the intersection. That is an unsafe intersection, needs to be there. But also recognize that the current design of sidewalk that is close to the roadway and visible to do that, data shows that sidewalks that are like that tend to help reduce traffic speeds. We have seen that when we you know, redid Hipkins. We got a lot of comments. There are sidewalks now, and then we got comments from drivers that I can't. And there is a noticeable difference in the speed at which drivers drive on Angle Lane now, and then what they drive on Elwood, because they drive down Angle Lane and there's a sidewalk there, and there is an electronic sign that tells people how fast they're driving. But once they turn onto Elwood, where the path is now off behind the trees and it almost looks like it's in the park. It's not, right? Speed on Elwood is still viewed as problematic. So you know, there are some negative safety aspects to having a meandered path, even if the school district would allow to do that, and even if we were to spend a significant amount of extra money, we shouldn't delay getting the safety things that it's the primary reason for the project that's there. The one other thing, Mr. Mayor, that I wanted to bring up is the city manager in his last city manager weekly update published the schedule of meetings that were leading to the reconsideration of cannabis stop, whether we continue our prohibition on doing it. And I have some problems with the fast track schedule of meetings. You know, this is something for the planning commission to consider, because it's a land use issue if we add another category of businesses. And I understand that, and they have an introductory meeting, a study, you know, a public hearing, and then a thing to do that. But for us, it's condensed down to a study session, then a public hearing, and then a vote. And when we were at our study session and we talked about it, we had discussions about, when we want to make this decision, there's some information that we need. We need information about the finances involved, because that was a significant question that plays into the decision. We want to know some information about community impacts of what is going on, and to do that. And then the third thing is that some updates on the regulatory process of actually licensing and regulating these, because the Alcohol and Cannabis Board has made changes since the time 10 years ago. And, 10 years ago, it was, will you authorize there to be 3 or not? And now they've gone to the point of where they don't commit to how many licenses they'll give to you if you're willing to do that. But I'm not really sure how their rules apply there, and we should know that as something as we move forward to making a decision. So I would think that I would like to see for the council's agenda to be a study session, the public hearing, then another study session where we can both digest the public hearing and hear back the answers that we developed in our first study session, and then a session to vote, which would add a week or two between, it would add 2 weeks to that timeline to go from October 3rd to October 17th for when a vote was scheduled. And the other reason why I'd like to make that extension of time is that amongst our grouping of advisory committees over the past 4 years, the one that has been most active in working on and doing things with respect to the spectrum of substance abuse and use has been the Youth Council. They have, particularly in collaboration with their companion group that is the Superintendent's Advisory Group, they have made films. They have made it, this is a topic of discussion at their summits. They have gone through and doing all of this. And I would be interested in their take on this particular item. And the problem is there is no youth council. The youth council won't reconvene until mid-September. So to try to ask them the question, having them to have some meaningful discussions amongst themselves on a couple of meetings and then get back to us just isn't doable by 3 October, but we can formulate them, they can get organized, and we can ask them to make that an early order of business to collectively talk about what it would be, what is their thought on that particular issue. Their thoughts would have some influence on what I would do. So by extending it out to the 17th of October, the new youth council can be formed in the first 10 days of September, can hold get organized event, what they always do, have a real regular meeting or two, and give us some feedback. And that's the one group whose feedback I think is do that. Those of us who went to AWC and we heard the keynote presenter who talked about the 13 ways to destroy your city. One of those was don't listen to your young people. And I think it's important for us to do that because the decision that we're contemplating, unlike the decision that we made before to not allow them, the decision to begin to allow them is one that is virtually irreversible if we make it. It's kind of like what happened with casinos. Once the early city council said casinos are okay, then any discussions about maybe we don't want them became you can't go there. Okay, you can't do that.
So, Councilmember Branstetter, we've heard your remarks. I mean, you're now getting into it. We're not debating.
No, again,
cannabis sales.
They ask is that include an additional study session, the vote on October 17th.
Great. Councilmember Lindholm.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Representative Tillicum, I think would fit better.
We'll work on the title.
Tillicum Woodbrook.
Looking forward to farmers market tomorrow. Unfortunately, not available in the evening. And that raises something I brought up earlier in the year. I really think it'd be beneficial, rather than randomly assigning council members to things, that we lay out the schedule and let folks sign up. I think that's going to result in a lot less shuffling, a lot fewer conflicts. That'd be my suggestion to council. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Yeah, I think we need to have some discussions around scheduling because we've added quite a few of these at our request, community meetings, and then it seems like there are an increasing number of conflicts. So besides tomorrow night, there's also okay. I think we're fine going into next week. I thought there was some other conflicts this week too, but that's good. Okay, so Pierce Transit tonight, this afternoon, Pierce Transit Board voted to put a sales tax increase in front of the voters in their transportation benefit area. So it's a 0.3 cent increase, and it'll go from 0.6% to 0.9%. Really in line with what other agencies have in the greater Puget Sound area, lower than some, higher than others, but in line with most of the other ones. And they can provide this council with as much information as you'd like, because we sat there tonight and went through it in a lot of detail. And I'll have to send you the detail, because there is a lot of detail in regards to increased number of hours, both on the weekdays, frequencies. So there are no more routes there are a lot of routes now that are only every hour, and that just doesn't really work. It doesn't really work. And then the increased hours are one of the things that I guess when they talk to people here in Lakewood, that's what they said. Hey, I need increased hours to get to and from work. So it'll go later at night till about 10 at night. There's also increased hours. There's some new routes, route in Northeast Tacoma, a route that comes from Tacoma, kind of 6th Avenue down Tyler and ends up here in Lakewood. Then there's another one in Puyallup on Shaw Road in that area to keep up with some of the growth. So, like I said, and when we can get a presentation here, they'd be more than happy to do. I think we should at least hear what they've got to say. So I'll just leave it at that. And everyone, and so, but because there is a lot involved in it. Beyond that, signal box. I think the parks guys said a lot of good stuff. I'm glad. I think there is frustration building around the barn, but I think when you have a big project like that, it just takes time to work through, right? And when Councilmember Bell and I came back from Washington D.C., we were like, "This is great. This is going to get us over 10 million. You know, we're ready to start turning the shovel, and the legislative process works its own way." And all of a sudden it's like, well, we might not have that, so we don't have to go back to the drawing board, but we do have to find some additional funding somewhere. And there are different things that we can explore on that. So I'm going to leave it at that. And you got a lot of stuff next week, a lot of stuff to hear next week. So, but we do have I'd announce that the city council will recess into executive session for approximately 15 minutes pursuant to, is someone saying something? Oh, Deputy Mayor Bell hasn't spoken. How did I forget that? I apologize profusely.
Don't apologize. It's because we talk right here. So I will just add on to when you were talking about the H barn. I think it would be beneficial if our ad hoc committee did get back together. It seemed like that was something that PRAB really wanted to talk with you guys again. So I don't know if we can make that happen somehow, some way, to get some things a little bit more concrete and answer some of their questions. Correct. Yes. So I think that was really kind of my only real comment. And I do have to agree with Councilmember Brandstetter on the safety on Councilmember Lauricella was talking about. You had brought up earlier about how municipal governments would kind of get clogged up. And so this is an example of one that I would put safety over going back and reassessing and stopping progress that has already been going on. But it is, I do understand your point there too. So that's it for me, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Bell, and my apologies for that. Councilmember Lindholm, you want to weigh in on?
First time was
anything? Okay, okay. So I'd like to announce the City Council will recess into executive session for approximately 15 minutes pursuant to RCW 42.30.110, paragraph 1, subparagraph I, to discuss with legal counsel representing the agency litigation or potential litigation to which the agency, the governing body, or a member acting in an official capacity is or is likely to become a party when public knowledge regarding the discussion is likely to result in an adverse legal or financial consequence to the agency. The City Council is not expected to take action following the executive session other than to adjourn the meeting. So 15 minutes, so we'll be back. Let's make it 9:40. Is that okay? Is that is that going to work? Okay. So we'll be back at 9:40 p.m. Thank you.